when you take into consideration larger franchises, things with multiple entries in the series, which ones kind of stick out in our minds? Because, you know, with me, it always seems like it's the smaller ones. It's you acknowledge the big ones, the turning points and the milestones, but sometimes it's those smaller pictures or those smaller entries that really stick with us. You know, I'm a Star Trek fan. When everybody talks about, the best episodes of Star Trek: The Next Generation, everyone automatically goes, oh, the best of both worlds. And yeah, the best of both worlds is good, but it's not my favorite episode of Next Gen. My favorite episode is an episode called Tapestry, where Q takes Picard back in time and helps him change his own past. It's a smaller story and one that most people usually overlook, but I think it's their best episode. Likewise, back when the Marvel films were just kind of the first chunk, everything leading up to the original Avengers, my favorite of those, The Incredible Hulk. I liked The Incredible Hulk. I thought it was a really good movie, but an underrated one. And it's just interesting what kind of jumps out at us. And where I'm going with this is when you look at the Abbott and Costello pantheon and you look at the filmography, there are some amazing pictures in there. I've talked about some of them already, but we have some more real important films to get into down the road. But in between all of those, there's this little number. If this film was kind of a standalone thing, I might have featured it on my other show, Forgotten Gems. Because this is just a gem of a movie. This is just a delightful, fun, back to form Abbott and Costello outing. This is the one that when I'm just kind of feeling, I don't want to say down, but you're having one of those days, you just need a laugh, you need something lighthearted. This is the one I go to. Hold That Ghost and some of the other ones we're going to talk to, maybe some of my favorite movies of all time. But when I need kind of a quick pick-me-up, I toss in Here Come the Co-eds. And I've loved it since the first time I watched it. It is just, I'm just going to overuse the term delightful. It is just absolutely delightful. So, let's talk about this charming little entry into the Abbott and Costello filmography. So, what is it about? Let's start. Well, basic scenario, Abbott and Costello go to college. But wait, let's make it even better. Abbott and Costello go to an all-girls college. Perfect. Comic gold. Especially when you consider that in terms of the comedians, especially the ones that are big at that time, Bud and Lou were the least predatory of them. That sounds horrible. I'm a huge Marx Brothers fan. I'm a Marx Mark. So don't misconstrue. But let's face it, Groucho's deal was he was chasing after the hot women. Harpo literally was chasing after the hot women. Please don't cancel Harpo. Please don't cancel Harpo. Anyway, so putting them in an all-girls college would just be a recipe for real disaster. Putting Abbott and Costello into an all-girls college, you can see it working, and it does, because they're not... Lou likes the ladies, but he's very innocent about it. It is very much that little boy with a crush, kind of, and the girls kind of treat him more like a little brother than they do, a grown man kind of in their midst. It works for them where it would not work for other people. So that's the basic scenario. More detail. So in this film, Bud Abbott's sister, not his real sister, his in-movie sister, played by Martha O'Driscoll, Bud is trying to basically get her publicity to get him more money. And she works as a dance hall girl, meaning that basically back in the day, you'd go to a dance hall and you'd pay people to have a dance with you if you didn't have a date. The ladies would pay the guys, and the guys would pay the girls, of course. So he's trying to get her more dances, therefore to get her more money, by making this big publicity stunt by saying that she's trying to save all her money to go to this girls' school named Bixby. Okay? So it's all a stunt. But it turns very real when the dean of Bixby College shows up and says, I saw your ad, here's a scholarship. And Bud's sister goes to college, and she takes Abbott and Costello along, and they become caretakers. And the plot kicks in. The plot becomes kind of a Baywatch plot. If you watch Baywatching, Alison Pregler's channel, one of the very early episodes, she kind of talks about the Baywatch sports cliche, where it's like, we need some of money to save the place, so we have to win sporting event. And that basically is what happens here. So the dean of Bixby is very laid back, very new agey, new agey for 1945. But the main shareholder of the college is very old, and he doesn't like all these advanced things, and women shouldn't be playing sports and taking modern classes, blah, 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 blah. And I'm going to close the school down, blah, 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 blah. And, Bud and Lou have to put their con artist hats on and find a way to get the money to save the school. There you go. So there is the plot. Why I think this film works, especially given the history of what's been going on with Abbott and Costello up to this point, is this is the first one of their middle period. Their first one of their films back from their hiatus after Lou's illness, after a horrific family tragedy. This is the first one that feels like they are having fun. This one does not feel like the work that In Society and Lost in a Harem were. And I really like In Society. And Lost in a Harem has its good points. But you can just kind of feel it. If you're watching these in succession like I am, and this is the first time I've ever watched all these films in chronological order. Normally it's just kind of a little here, a little there. You can see in those films that it's hard for Lou to get back into the swing of things. He does it, but there's a little something missing. This is the first one of their films where it feels like he's having fun again. And by extension, the rest of the cast is having fun, and the movie is having fun. I also think that this one's plot is much more streamlined than the last two, and so therefore, we know what our obstacle is, and we know what our conflict is, and we can plan the movie kind of around that. Unlike kind of the others where it was like, Bud and Lou are at a high fashion, a high society garden party. Never mind how they get there or what they're doing once they get there. Bud and Lou are running around trying to beat Jafar. This one, it feels like the plot is much simpler, much more streamlined, and therefore they're able to build the movie and the bits around that premise. Kind of the main example I use of this. I use two scenes as an example of Lou actually having fun. The first one is when they do one of their classic bits in this one. One of the ones they do in this one is the whale story. And this is where Lou is trying to tell the audience a story, one that he supposedly made up himself. Bud keeps interrupting him, therefore getting him more frustrated. And it turns out the joke he made of himself is an old joke that everybody already knows the punchline to. But the humor is in Bud interrupting Lou and Lou getting more and more frustrated. Now, how they frame this one in this film is the girls in the college are trying to come up with jokes for a school play, and Lou says, well, I've got a joke. So they are delivering this bit to a live audience. And these girls watching, they're extras, and they're watching and participating. They're laughing, and you can tell that this is not like staged laughter. This is them actually reacting to Abbott and Costello in real time. And when they react, Abbott and Costello react. Remember, they're vaudeville performers. They're live performers. A lot of their bits depend on audience interaction. especially when you have a straight man like Bud who can work a crowd, and when you have a comedian like Lou who is so good at communicating with an audience that we kind of forget, watching all these movies, what these must have felt like live. We get a touch of that in certain other things that they did, such as the radio show and a show we'll talk about further down the line. But not a lot of these routines in these movies have a live audience. They're just kind of filmed. This one demands a live audience, and having that live audience gives you the energy. The audience is having fun. They're having fun. And by extension, we, the third eye of the audience, are having fun. And that scene has a different energy to it than a lot of their other movies. And this is not saying the other movies are bad. It's just saying having that live audience interaction really helps. So that's example one. Example two, the centerpiece of this movie, kind of the climactic moment of this movie. So they get enough money to bet on a basketball game. The girls' college has a basketball team. The other college brings in ringers, a professional basketball team who's like playing it really rough, and they're knocking out the Bixby girls, and they knock out enough of their players that they don't have any more substitutes. So Lou dresses as a woman and goes into the game. And during the course of the game, he gets hit on the head, and because we didn't have an understanding of how severe head trauma actually affects athletes, back in the day it was comical and not tragic. When he gets hit on the head, he thinks that he's Daisy Dimple, the world's greatest professional basketball player. And every time he gets hit on the head again, he forgets, and back and forth. So a funny way to get Lou into the basketball game. Here's the thing you might not know. Lou Costello was a semi-professional basketball player in his youth. You wouldn't believe it to look at him. This is something a lot of people just don't know about Lou Costello, because he's such a round, pudgy little fellow. So his height, his weight, you automatically assume this guy, he can't do anything. He was extremely athletic. He was a semi-professional basketball player. He was an amateur boxer. He's going to box in later films, other than the bit he did in Buck Privates. And you can see he knows what he's doing. The basketball game in this is amazing, and what's truly amazing about it, watch this basketball game in this. That is him in there. There's no stunt double. And he's doing all of these trick shots, and it's freaking him. The last shot of the game is, of course, a camera trick, because it's physically impossible to do. At least I would assume. But all these other trick shots, there's a shot where he bounces the ball on the ground about mid-court, and it bounces up and goes into the hoop. And that's him doing it. And from all accounts, he had a blast doing that scene. He'd wanted to do a basketball scene in one of their movies multiple times, and the script just never allowed it. And here he was able to do it, and you can tell he is just having the time of his life. Foreshadowing. So again, it feels like Lou is having fun with it again, and by extension, we are. This is a great Bud and Lou movie. They do some great stuff. There's another scene where Lou wrestles, which, of course, a lot of that is his stunt double, but it's still funny as a wrestling fan. As a wrestling fan, what I find funny about this, two things. Number one, so this wrestling match is being held on a stage instead of in an arena, because most wrestling is done with audience, on all three sides, on an arena. This one is done on a stage with the audience in the proscenium, looking at, and two, the ring is literally just ring posts and ropes set up on the floor. There's no mat. They're slamming around on a hardwood floor. It's did we not have a ring set for this? But it's a funny bit. There's a great bit where Bud and Lou are cleaning up the caretaker's quarters. I can't describe it. It's just really funny. They're given a great comic foil in this one. Their nemesis in this one is the great Hollywood legend Lon Chaney Jr., best known for his portrayal of Lawrence Talbot, the Wolfman, the original Wolfman, foreshadowing. And he is great with them. He works very well with them, and clearly they had a lot of fun working with him. He appeared on their radio show. But I think the best co-star of this one has to go to Lou's love interest, and that is Miss Peggy Ryan. So Peggy Ryan plays, what is her name now? Now I totally forgot what the character's name is. Patty. She plays Patty. One of the girls at the college who starts going out with Lou. And Peggy Ryan, there's no other way to put it, she is just adorable. I believe that she is the best Lou Costello love interest there ever was. I think she matched him perfectly. She is the perfect blend. Her character is the perfect blend of Abbott and Costello. That she's goofy and does some of the comical things like Lou does. And she's got kind of a younger energy. You can tell she's in her 20s, her early to mid-20s in this film. But she's got a much younger energy, the same thing that Lou Costello has. But at the same time, she's got kind of a slick air to her, a little bit of a con artist thing, kind of like Bud does. So she kind of comes down right as the perfect lightning rod between them. And because of that, I think she has better chemistry with Lou Costello than I think any of his other leading ladies did. I also credit Peggy Ryan with two of the best songs to ever appear in an Abbott and Costello film post Andrews Sisters. I think I mentioned this in the In Society video, but when I was watching these as a kid, I wasn't interested in the musical numbers. I fast forwarded through them. And I didn't do that for In Society, and I didn't do it for this film. Peggy Ryan does two songs in this one. She does one with Lou, a duet called Let's Play House, which is just cute. It's weird that they didn't do more duets with Lou Costello in these films, because he's very funny, and he has an interesting singing voice. But they do a very cute little musical number. And then she does a big tap dance number at the basketball game during halftime called Jump In on Saturday Night. Very energetic, a lot of character in her face and her blocking. Though I'm sure that every basketball coach in the world is grimacing at her in her heels doing tap dancing routines on the basketball court. I'm sure I can just see the coaches at the high school I work at going, ah! But yeah, the film just has that energy. It's got a great, bubbly, fun energy to it. So much so that I really can't think of anything really wrong with the film. There's really nothing that doesn't fit together, or a character that doesn't really belong. It all seems to work. We also see, I mentioned this again in the In Society video, that we're starting to redefine the Abbott and Costello formula. One of the trademarks of that formula, as we have mentioned multiple times, was the boy-girl storyline. That is downplayed here pretty much to the point of almost non-existence. There really isn't a boy-girl love story in this one. It's hinted at, but it's not driven. And that's between Bud's sister and the dean. Now, hold on to that thought for a second. They have a bit of a flirtation, and she tries to leave the school when, Mr. Killjoy tries to shut it down because he doesn't like her being there, and the dean says, no, you can't, and if, we've got to fight for these new things, and she says, okay. That's kind of the extent of their relationship on screen. They're there to service the story. It's hinted at that there's an attraction, which there's something a little suspect looking at, that the dean of the school is hitting on one of the students. Not only hitting on one of the students, it's heavily suggested that he's already had a relationship with another student, the grouchy guy's daughter. So he's a dean that's already being very predatory towards two students at this school. I'm over exaggerating, obviously. But we're seeing that story and those types of additions to the Abbott and Costello films, those are starting to take a back seat, and I think for the better. I really think for the better. So, again, there's not a lot to complain about. I don't have anything really to complain about this one. I love this movie. It's charming, it's delightful, it's lighthearted, it's fun, it fits, it's just a fun little movie. And again, not the landmark film that some of their others are going to be, not genre redefining like some of their other films have been and are going to be, but a perfectly serviceable, fun, entertaining little film. And I just love this one. I absolutely love it. So there you go. All right, so with this film we officially enter 1945. So the war is over. This film released February 2nd, 1945. The war is over. Things are starting to be put back together, and Abbott and Costello now are, again, they're entering the middle phase of their career, and we're going to see some drastic changes in their presentation and in their movie styles going forward. So I hope you'll join me for that. Thank you for watching this, and as always, drive safe, and I will see you at the movies.